Hello, everyone. My name is Elaine Herlihy. I'm the Chief Marketing and Product Officer at OFX. Thank you to CPA Australia for the invitation to participate. It's an honour to be part of this year's CPA Australia's virtual Congress on Leadership, and what a subject. Today, I want to talk to you about harnessing the power of horizontal leadership to drive meaningful change. This topic is one that's very pertinent to my career journey and to my own growth as a leader. And like all of us, I have felt truly tried and tested over the past couple of years. There is nothing like the huge level of uncertainty that we've seen in 2020 and the ongoing predictability to jolt a person or a business into applying a new way of thinking. But before we delve into what horizontal leadership is, let me give you a little bit of background about me, from both a professional and a personal perspective, my experiences of leadership and how that has developed over time. So I'm the eldest of 6 children and all of my cousins. I have babysat everybody in my family from a very young age, and I've always done my best to be responsible. I've been described as a driver. And for those of you familiar with the behavioral styles described in DISC, I'm a high D or red. So I'm naturally very directive and even more so under pressure and stress. My focus is often outcome, task, and speed. I like to be in control of things. I'm even the one in my family that does the holiday spreadsheet. And I want to get things done to a very high standard, which of course is my standard. With traits like that, it's probably not a big surprise that I ended up working in financial services. Professionally, I've grown up working in London and in Australia, working for very large organizations, Reuters, BT, Westpac, PayPal, mainly in marketing and brand roles. These organizations have large employee bases, distinct divisions, and are quite structured in how things are done. They are also quite hierarchical in nature. I've been working for over 20 years now, and it's fair to say that the way leadership has been defined and practiced over that time frame has changed significantly. What we know and describe as vertical leadership has been the mainstay. Leaders driving outcomes from the top down for their functions with cross-functional project work. And that didn't mean that there hasn't been great teamwork. I've worked in and enjoyed vertical structures, and I'm very proud of the outcomes. It also, to some degree, makes for a much easier and cleaner process. Now, when I first managed people, hierarchy meant quite a lot. When I was younger, if my senior leader said jump, I said how high. Nowadays, leaders who say such things are likely to be met with quite a different and probably not so polite an answer. Times have changed, and for the better, I think. And team cultures have also changed. I've worked in some roles where teamwork was absolutely revered, but I have also worked in jobs where my peers and I have been set up as competitors at best and adversaries at worst. The Hunger Games was a well-used description at one point in one role. Again, over the years, it has been encouraging to see a more humanistic and holistic approach to working together. Vertical leadership depends to a high extent on hierarchy, a defined way of teams working together, and management calling the shots on resourcing and how things are done. It's a more controlled way of doing things. And as you'll have realized from how I've described myself earlier, it's a kind of leadership that actually plays rather well to my natural tendencies. But today, I'm going to talk to you about the journey that I and our business went on, forged in the furnace of our response to COVID-19, where a shift from vertical to horizontal leadership has made us more effective, more financially resilient, and set up for growth. I joined OFX about 2.5 years ago as the Chief Marketing Officer. OFX is a small cap, ASX listed, international money transfer company. We operate globally with 8 offices worldwide and my global team operates in multiple time zones. Over a year ago, I stepped into the role of Chief Marketing and Product Officer with accountability for marketing, product, UX, and data. And as I took stock of my new and a much broader role with a mandate for growth and transformation and a team twice the size, COVID was hitting hard. Being a global team, we were on and off that COVID roller coaster, the whole gamut of emotions and conditions as different markets moved in and out of lockdown at different times. Not much, if anything, was certain. But what was very clear was that the way I had previously been leading and operating, and how we as a leadership team had been operating, was under pressure. The only way forward was to act more as a collective. If you translate that into a business context, it turns out that working like this actually has a name, and it's called horizontal leadership. And horizontal leadership is defined as persuading others over whom you have absolutely no direct control to join you in a common cause. Now, I like to think that I'm good at leading teams, and that I'm good at being part of a cross-functional team to get things done. But horizontal leadership is a very different beast to that, and it's a whole different level. Being an effective horizontal leader is not easy or straightforward. Mostly, it's the opposite. Sometimes, to be honest, it's not even that enjoyable. It requires awareness, maturity, next level listening, and a lot of effort. But, and this is why it's worth it, for any business or team, it's where the growth is. It's where the outperformance is. And it's where the return on investment is. And in my experience, that applies both from a professional, but also a personal perspective. A big personal aha for me came some time ago. And it was after one of our OFX executive meetings, where our CTO had presented on a really important project. I realized that through busyness and focusing on my own backyard, so to speak, that I was not getting actively involved in some of our biggest customer opportunities and investments at OFX. Now, I could tell myself it wasn't my department. It wasn't my area of expertise. It wasn't even my accountability. But in truth, our tech delivery teams, like many other areas, undertake critical work for the company. And that's work that has a profound customer impact. And that really jolted me. You know, working in bigger organizations previously, I'd often had the thought, don't those guys, unisex term, up there in the LT talk to one another? Don't they cooperate across the big ticket items? What's going on up there in these exec meetings? And yet, here I was essentially doing the exact same thing. And it really hit me that regardless of how good a job I might be doing in my own departments, the outcomes were limited because the majority of my effort was delivering in my own teams. It's back to that vertical leadership rather than horizontal. And as I took on leadership of an expanded portfolio, the potential of peer leadership and really rallying behind a clear customer and company vision never felt so pointy. I knew that my previous way of leading simply wouldn't cut it in this scenario. Now, as all of you have experienced, in March 2020, the world went to custard. Not only have we all started using the word unprecedented in indeed unprecedented amounts, our organization, like yours, had to face huge uncertainty in terms of trading conditions. For a business that supports cross-border commerce, limitations on trade and travel, and border closures, along with global economic uncertainty, well, it was, let's face it, only one word for it, an unprecedented challenge. The questions that we had to answer pretty quickly were, how do we lead through this? Importantly for OFX, we wanted to protect all of our employees' jobs. How could we do that? What will consumer behavior look like for the rest of the year? How will COVID affect acquisition across both our consumer and small business portfolios? Should we bunker down and stop investing in the short term to try to protect our financial profile? We could see that competitors were pulling out of the market. Should we do the same? This was one of our biggest financial decisions, as marketing is a significant investment area at OFX. As a business, we also have a focus on digital plus human, a great digital experience coupled with a genuinely excellent 24/7 human service. Whilst our digital offering was in good shape, we had to respond to a new level of lockdown customer expectation, needing us to accelerate our digital and our technology roadmap. The challenges we were facing all involved multiple functional areas: marketing, finance, data, product, tech, legal, ops, compliance, everybody. It's pretty easy to rally one's own team around a challenge, and that's where vertical leadership has a real advantage. But when there are cross-functional dependencies and you're with your peers, well, that requires a very different approach. So let me bring that to life a little bit more. For most of us in business, we need to attract prospective customers. We need to get them in the door, convert them, onboard them, get them to do their first transaction, then retain them, and so on. It takes almost every single team in any company to do that. When that funnel doesn't work well, or one of the links is broken, there's significant downside. We don't acquire new customers, or we don't retain them. We don't realize the ROI, we lose revenue, we don't deliver to our customers and to our shareholders. The thing is, all of those departments generally operate in their own backyard. Marketing and sales are responsible for attracting the customer, ops for onboarding, and so forth. We operate end-to-end vertically, but not necessarily horizontally. And everyone around that exec table has a pretty defined remit. These departments are run by senior, experienced, competent leaders with specialized skills. And sometimes that's not an issue. And it's not as pointy if things are going well and revenue is ahead of plan. But as COVID impacted us in the OFX exec team, we needed to get okay really quickly with getting into each other's business, so to speak. And personally, I knew the best thing that I could do for the company was to stop focusing on incremental gains in my own backyard and to increase my effectiveness working across the organization. And that's quite confronting, isn't it? The idea of not focusing on your own department, but across the organization where you have less control. So where do you start? One of the main reasons horizontal leadership is challenging is because it's messy. It means being out of your comfort zone and sticking your nose into other people's business, in the professional sense, of course, to drive outcomes. Not a lot of people like doing that or like having it done to them. Because I'm talking to the CPA community here, I'll focus in a little on how marketing and finance have worked through that approach, and as a result, are a strong and productive alliance at OFX. Conventional and somewhat outdated wisdom has it that finance and marketing are sometimes on the opposite sides of the fence. But we actually have tons in common: customer growth, commercial goals, company performance. Overall, we both want to drive sustainable growth over the short, medium, and long term in our organizations. In March and April 2020, we had to make some decisions around continued investment, mainly in marketing and in accelerating our tech and digital capability. And this was all at a time when we couldn't forecast with any certainty our financial profile for the year. Solving for that is not done by one team working vertically. Post the March shock, we had two of our worst trading months in the year, as consumers and businesses struggled to adapt and to make sense of the pandemic. But then opportunities began to show. And by the way, we can, of course, look back now and see them as opportunities. But at the time, we really didn't know 100% what we were seeing, but we didn't have the luxury of waiting. With data in hand on trading signals, frontline customer feedback, and signs of new use cases like PPE and home improvement materials, for example, our CFO and I worked closely together, mapping out scenarios. We made the decision to push ahead. OFX would go into market instead of pulling back at a time when our competitors were pulling out. The reason that we had the confidence for a counter-cyclical investment was because of horizontal leadership. The CFO and myself worked across our departments to model the risk and the potential rewards of a bolder strategy. We did not stick to our lanes. And let me detour for 1 minute to illustrate how different an approach this is. I recall a previous role at a different organization where the entire annual marketing OPEX of tens of millions was axed to make a financial profile work, without a lot of discussion with the CMO of the time. Very vertical leadership, not the best example of it. But back to OFX. Each of our regional leaders took hold of new revenue targets and aligned their teams in sales and service. Ops and compliance took on the onboarding of more corporate and e-commerce clients, which have higher levels of due diligence involved. As a leadership team, we also agreed to industrialize our effort to go after enterprise clients, with product, legal, technology, finance, all supporting our sales teams as they pitched for new types of business based on an accelerated tech capability. The key point here is that if any of the leaders, including myself, had been looking after just their own backyard, or had been unwilling or unable to work across the company, I think we would have floundered as a business. Long story short, coming to the end of 2021, whilst it was not quite the year we had all anticipated, our strategy to back the growth in small business, online sellers, and enterprise paid off. We grew our small business revenue by 11%, and online seller revenue also by 11%. The decisions that we took in half one drove half two results. EBITDA was up 82.2%, NOI was up 81.7%. We won enterprise clients like WiseTech, Storefund, and Perler, and did the groundwork to win a partnership with the ATO, which was announced in May. These are results that we're really proud of, but what we're more proud of is how we got there. And that's through a level of honesty and connection across the leadership team that I haven't experienced in a peer group previously. And that makes coming to work, even virtually, more meaningful. It makes it much more impactful and actually a lot more fun. It has transformed the effectiveness of our leadership team. So what are my learnings and takeouts? Now I'll take you through what I have learned, and I hope that some of these are useful to you as you flex your horizontal leadership skills. It's very straightforward to lead your team, but broader leadership, horizontal leadership, is a different beast altogether, and it demanded and continues to demand a lot of me. So here's my recipe for horizontal leadership. Your why. Be clear on it. For me, my purpose at work is to outperform in driving customer and commercial growth. I realized that getting good at horizontal leadership was the best way for me to achieve that. On the days when it feels demanding, and it often does, I just remember why I'm doing this. It sounds simple, but it's pretty fundamental, and it changes your mindset. Know your why. Second ingredient, lean in a lot. You can't be an effective horizontal leader unless you know what's going on in other areas. Get involved. Don't leave it to others to know what the priorities or opportunities are in ops or marketing or technology. I was nervous about treading on other leaders' toes, but I found out that when I demonstrated respect for other people's roles and their expertise, I understood their challenges and offered to help however I could. My interest was accepted and over time welcomed. And that goes both ways, of course. I, in turn, have to welcome those who wish to lean into product, marketing, UX, and data. It's definitely a two-way street. Number 3, find that commonality. You know, regardless of what teams people work in, there is always commonality. For our CFO, Selena, she and I are aligned on driving commercial outcomes and ROI. For Adam, our CTO, we both want innovative product and digital experiences based on cutting-edge technology. For Mark, who's our COO, I am as invested as he is in onboarding our clients safely as well as quickly and in managing risk. Find that commonality. It really is a powerful ingredient for horizontal leadership. Number 4, park your ego. This is a good one. I had to leave my ego at the door and not get obsessed about the right way to get things done. I have strong views on things, what's the right outcome, and how to get there. So I have to watch this tendency in myself and put more value on the outcome. Interestingly, because diversity of thought is more enabled in horizontal leadership, the outcome has always been better because of it. Number 5, make grey your favorite color. I had to give up on black and white. There is no clear, helpfully signposted pathway. There are twists and turns going back and to the side to go forward. For someone like me, driven towards task and outcome, that's a different way of doing things, and I had to learn how to behave differently. I now try to focus on progress, not perfection, and as long as I can see that we're moving forward, I've learned to be more comfortable with the grey. Number 6, trust and be trusted. I had to invest and build trust and relationships, giving, not getting, trusting other people's intent as well as asking them to trust mine. I have also gotten more comfortable asking for help along the way. Horizontal leadership, by its nature, means that you are not going to have all the answers. You have to depend on others. It feels like a risk sometimes, but it's worth taking. This brings me to the end of this session. I should say that my journey on horizontal leadership is truly a work in progress. And often working in this way goes against my nature and my instinct. I have had to let go of some of my old assumptions and habits and open up to a different style of thinking and behavior. That said, I assure you that the practice does make it feel more natural over time. Thank you for your time today. I hope you found something useful to you in the last half hour or so. I'll leave you with one of my favorite sayings. You've probably heard it before, but it is one that has served me well as I strive to be a better colleague and a better business leader. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, really far, you have to go together. Thank you.